The purpose of a job interview is to give a potential employer the chance to talk to you in person and evaluate whether you would be a strong employee. The interview also provides you an opportunity to evaluate the company and decide whether you want to work for the company. To get that job offer, you must make a good first impression, present yourself well, communicate effectively, and show the interviewer politeness and respect. So, we are going to watch about the how to act at a job interview.
Method 1. Having a confident and professional appearance. First is dress for the job you want.
Conventional wisdom says you should wear a business suit to an interview. But that's not always the right choice. Dress in clothing that best reflects the dominant attire for people working in that industry. If you're unsure about the dress code at the company where you're interviewing, take a trip down there around closing time and watch people leaving the office. See how they're dressed. It's always best to err on the side of formality. You may feel out of place if you wear a suit and everyone in the office is wearing jeans. But you likely won't make a bad impression.
Step 2. Maintain a neat and professional appearance.
Even in a relatively casual industry, you should still wear clean, pressed clothing for an interview. Avoid graphic t-shirts, jeans, or anything that's frayed or ripped. While you don't necessarily have to go out and buy new clothing for an interview, you also don't want to look like you pulled something off the top of a laundry pile. Make sure your clothing fits well. Avoid wearing anything that you'll feel the need to constantly adjust every time you move.
Step 3. Avoid strong colognes or perfumes.
Your interview will likely be held in a closed office or conference room with little ventilation. While you want to be clean and fresh, you don't want to overpower your interviewer. You also have no way of knowing if your interviewer has allergies. Giving your interviewer a migraine, or worse, is not going to leave them with a good first impression of you.
Step 4. Maintain eye contact.
Eye contact is one of the surest ways to convey confidence when speaking to someone. If you have problems maintaining eye contact, get a friend or family member to practice with you before the interview. Although you want to maintain eye contact when you speak, staring can be off-putting. You might occasionally glance down at your resume to break eye contact. Be careful about looking towards the clock or the door, or out the window. You might give off the impression that you're bored or have somewhere else you'd rather be.
Step 5. Sit up straight.
Good posture not only demonstrates confidence and a strong sense of self-esteem, it also makes you appear healthier and more in control of yourself. Practice sitting on the front half of a chair with your feet flat on the floor. Lift your chin and roll your shoulders back so that your shoulder blades are tucked in alongside your spine. Your back should be straight and neutral, not arched in either direction.
Step 6. Try breathing exercises.
If you can feel your nerves getting the best of you before the interview, some deep breathing exercises can help you calm down. Sit in a comfortable place, lower the lights, and breathe deeply in through your nose. Pause, then exhale slowly out of your mouth. Clear your mind and focus on your breath. Try to exhale for the same length of time as you inhale. You also might want to try some visualization exercises. Visualize yourself making a great impression at the interview, or starting your first day at the company.
Finally, mirror the interviewer's body language.
During the interview, pay attention to the way your interviewer sits and moves and the hand gestures they use. The more you mimic those movements, the more confident you'll seem and the better impression you'll make. When you mirror the interviewer's body language, it sends the signal to them that the two of you are in sync. You can use this little psychological trick to make a better impression. Be careful not to mimic your interviewer too closely, or you might come across as creepy. You want to avoid mirroring any behavior that might be a personal tic. Stick to large-scale movements, such as turning or leaning forward.
Method 2. Speaking effectively with your interviewer. First is pause before you speak.
When the interviewer asks you a question, take a few seconds to map out your response in your mind before you start talking. This allows you to focus and answer the question appropriately, and also can keep you from rambling. Avoid using filler or throat-clearing phrases such as, or, you know. Use these too much, and the interviewer won't hear anything you say because the verbal tick is too distracting. Talk to friends and family members before the interview and ask them if you have any verbal tics that you need to keep in check. They'll let you know. For example, maybe you say, like, more than you should.
Step 2. Be prepared for general interview questions.
There are a number of basic interview questions that nearly every interviewer will ask. Regardless of the industry or specific job you're interviewing for, have basic answers ready to go for these questions. For example, interviewers typically ask about your strengths and weaknesses. Keep these answers about the same length. You don't want to go on and on about your strengths for several minutes, then speak about your weaknesses for less than a minute. When discussing your weaknesses, use a real weakness and provide a specific example of how you're working to overcome that weakness. For example, you might say, one of my biggest weaknesses is that I tend to act impulsively. I'm working on this by always taking 3 deep breaths before I act on something.
Step 3. Keep your answers clear and concise.
Answer each question directly, and don't provide any more information than what was asked. Even if your mind has a tendency to wander, don't interrupt yourself or go off on tangents. If a question takes you off guard, don't be afraid to say so, just make sure it's not a standard question that is typically asked during interviews, or the interviewer will simply think you aren't prepared. Avoid oversharing or talking too much about your life, beliefs, or hobbies, unless, of course, you are asked about them specifically.
Step 4. Seek clarification for confusing questions.
If the interviewer asks you a question that you don't entirely understand, don't just wing it and answer what you think they asked. It's better to get clarification so you know you are providing the information the interviewer wanted. A good way to start is with, I hear you were saying. If the interviewer acknowledges that your understanding is correct, you can go on with your answer. If you were off base, they'll clear it up for you. Make sure you thank them for the clarification before you proceed.
Step 5. Use hand gestures.
Hand gestures make you appear more confident and sure of what you are saying. You'll also give the impression that you're energetic and enthusiastic about the opportunity. Don't go overboard with your gesturing, or get too emphatic. You don't want to seem like you are trying to overpower or intimidate the interviewer. Avoid reaching into their personal space.
Step 6. Stay positive.
The interviewer will no doubt ask you questions about your previous employer, or other experiences that may not be positive for you. Plan your answers ahead of time, and be careful not to say anything negative or critical about previous employers or co-workers. If you focus on the negative, it sends the message to your interviewer that you might be difficult to work with, or not respond well to criticism. If you parted ways with a previous employer on bad terms, present it as a learning experience. Explain what you learned and how it made you a better employer.
Step 7. Provide specific examples.
The interviewer may ask you fairly vague or general questions, but they expect you to respond with specifics. Rather than telling the interviewer what kind of employee you are, use examples to show them. The more specific details you have, the better your example will be. Think in terms of numbers and statistics. If you can tell an interviewer that you increased sales by 25%. For example, this is better than simply saying, sales went up. Quote, don't lie in your interview or exaggerate your accomplishments. If you don't remember specifics, admit this or provide a brief explanation as to why.
Finally, ask intelligent questions.
The interviewer will probably conclude the interview by asking you if you have any questions. And you should already have questions in mind as a result of your research. But don't wait until then to ask questions of the interviewer. For example, you might ask, how is this company integrating technology to streamline routine tasks? Quote, one good tactic is to follow up your answer to each interview question by asking the interviewer the same question, or a similar question, in return. This not only takes you off the hot seat for a minute, but makes the interview feel like a more natural conversation. For example, if your interviewer asks you about your strengths, You might follow up by asking your interviewer, "What do you consider the most valuable strengths for this position?" Quote.
Method 3. Observing good interview etiquette. First is organize your information ahead of time.
Employers want employees who are well prepared and ready to do their jobs. Demonstrate that you're that person by gathering the documents you need and thoroughly researching the company. Take at least 2 crisp copies of your resume with you, as well as copies of any other documents you submitted to the company. For example, if you are applying for a graphic design position, you may want to bring samples from your portfolio to show samples of your previous work. If you know the name of your interviewer, you may want to do some background research on them as well. Look on the company's website to find out the company's mission statement and core values. Look into the industry and the company's position in the industry. Find out their key competition, and how the company is performing relative to others.
Step 2. Get there early.
You may have heard the adage that, if you're on time, you're late. Show up 10 to 15 minutes early so you aren't rushed and you don't keep the interviewer waiting. This will send the message that you're actually interested in the job and you respect the interviewer's time. Planning to get there early also gives you plenty of time in case something happens. It won't be the end of the world if you can't find a parking place or accidentally go to the wrong floor.
Step 3. Greet everyone politely.
When you show up for your interview, you will likely talk to a number of other employees before your interview starts, such as the receptionist or another clerk. Ask their names and be polite. If the interview goes well, you may one day be working alongside these people. The interviewer also may ask them their impressions of you after you leave. If you make a bad impression on them, they may tell your interviewer about it anyway.
Step 4. Turn off your cell phone.
At no point, either before or during the interview, do you need to be looking at your phone. If you do, you'll give the interviewer the impression that you have somewhere more important to be, or someone more important to talk to. You also shouldn't keep your cell phone or any other device out in the open or in a place that's visible. Carry a small bag or purse, or keep your cell phone and any other devices tucked into your pocket.
Step 5. Let the interviewer take the lead.
You'll make a better impression if you allow the interviewer to control the space in the interview itself rather than walking in like you own the place. Don't enter the room or sit down in a chair until the interviewer invites you to do so. When you're asked a question, wait until you're sure the interviewer is done talking before you start. If they interrupt you, stop talking and listen to what they have to say before you continue.
Step 6. Show enthusiasm for the opportunity.
The interviewer needs to know that you want the position and are genuinely interested in working for the company. If you're excited and enthusiastic about the opportunity, your attitude may overcome any flaws or causes for concern on the part of the interviewer. Show gratitude to the interviewer at both the beginning and the end of the interview. Thank them for their time and for sitting down to talk with you. At the end of the interview, take the time to let them know specifically that you are interested in working for the company, and ask them what the next stage in the interview process will be.
Step 7. Keep fidgeting in check.
It's natural to fidget when you're nervous, and the interviewer knows that. Try to sit as still as possible. Keep something in your hands so that you won't be tempted to play with your hair or drum your fingers on your leg or the arm of the chair. If you have problems with your legs bouncing, try to keep both feet on the floor, or place your folder with your documents on your lap for a little added weight. When you're not talking, keep your hands flat on your lap. You may want to adjust your position, but try not to move around too much. If you've crossed your legs, avoid crossing and uncrossing them frequently.
Step 8. Avoid eating or drinking during the interview.
The interviewer may offer you a drink or a snack, either before or during the interview. Generally, you want to avoid eating anything at all, even if your interviewer is eating. A glass of water is fine, and can help you keep your throat clear. You can also take sips of water as you pause to collect your thoughts.
Finally, follow up with a thank you.
Your interview isn't over when you shake your interviewer's hand and leave the office. As soon as possible after your interviewer, Send a brief thank you note to the interviewer. Mailing a handwritten card can be a nice touch. People rarely get cards like this, so it will carry a little more meaning. Keep your note brief, but include at least one thing the interviewer said that really impressed you. Then express how grateful you are for the opportunity and that you look forward to hearing from them.
We hope it is useful to you. Please subscribe to our channel to upskill yourself.